paddle clubs.
I'm sure there will be, to be honest. Something of that. This for some reason I'm averse to it. It feels like I'll be in more control of the exercise if I was doing it myself. But I say that and I haven't done anything, so it could just be BS. Who knows? Anyway, welcome everybody to Brainfood Live on Air, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. Friends, it's always great to end the week with you in this conversation. People have criticized me. I've criticized myself for hosting this event on Friday afternoons. Why on earth do a live stream and a webinar at this time? Probably would get more viewers and people interested midweek. But you know what? I think we're going to keep it here. I think it's a good way to top and tail the week, to be fair. Let's review the week. Let's have a deep breath. Let's have a chat and get us kind of psyched up as to what's happening for the week that's just gone and the week ahead. All right, let's do some sound checks real quick. Want to make sure everything is okay in terms of audio visual. You should be seeing myself and Adam Gordon on screen. Let me know in the chat if you can see me and see and hear Adam okay. We're also live streaming this on a number of LinkedIns. My own LinkedIn, I think Rob Walker's LinkedIn as ever. A few other LinkedIns are blasting this out as well. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn, welcome. I hope you can hear and see me okay. If so, let me know in the comments whether that is the case. Okay, good stuff. It looks like we're moving ahead. Audio is fine. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Ed. And let's get on with the show. In fact, before we get on with the show, we've got just a quick intro. We've got the wonderful Sven Elbert coming to join us to deliver not a talk, because I don't want to put any pressure on that, but I do want to see some of his slides that he presented at RecFest 2025 earlier this year. I said it was going to be the best talk of the event. I'm sticking by my comment on that, simply because the content is so rich and it's so relevant to what it is. It's basically data and insight from a massive survey that Sven runs every week, every year, should I say, on how heads of TA actually think and behave. So this is about how they're using AI, where their tool allocation is, where their budget allocation is, how many people they got in their team, all this kind of stuff. We're going to dive into it. If you want a state of the nation with regards to how TA is going, this is the talk for you. Anyway, before we bring in Sven, we need to thank our sponsors, because without our sponsors, we cannot do this show. Every week, a technology company in our space steps up and says, you know what, Hung, keep these conversations going. And this week, we're delighted to welcome one of our one of our favorite sponsors. It's Team Taylor, of course. Team Taylor, they are one of the most highly rated and much loved ATSs in the market today. For some reason, they've got the magic sauce. People seem to really go above and beyond. Customers really love this stuff. Why is it? Don't let me sort of gazump Ed Kenaway, because he's going to tell us all about it. Let's bring on Ed, and he'll explain to you what Team Taylor is and why recruiters seem to be totally all over it. And there he is.
Good afternoon.
How you doing, Ed? Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Hung. I'm very well, thanks. How are you both?
Yeah, very, very good, man. Ed, for the people who don't know you, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do? And Team Taylor, who are they? And what do they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Ed Kenaway. I'm the head of enterprise sales at Team Taylor within the UK. So I work primarily with businesses starting at about 1,000 headcount up to our tens of thousands. And I know for some people here, they think Team Taylor, tens of thousands. We do have larger enterprise customers, and we are very much an enterprise ready tool. Even though some of you that might have used us before probably have used it in a kind of an SME capacity. But today I didn't want to just pitch Team Taylor and feature dump, because I actually read Sven's research and I actually really linked very nicely into quite a lot of things that I wanted to quickly convey with the time that I had. So I think, Sven, the research on the AI market assessments for TA, I hope I'm not gazumping you just by linking a little bit of it here. Hopefully there's a bit of continuity. But one of the kind of the key takeaways that I saw was hype versus reality, and not being sold down the road by roadmap. And I think if anybody that has already bought software, I've bought software in a sales capacity, you've probably been burnt by a vendor at some time with all of these promises that never really materialize. And what within Sven's research, I think the priority that he said is when you are reviewing these vendors, look at what they have delivered. And that's where I kind of wanted to tie it back to Team Taylor. In our AI model, we have delivered a huge amount of the features that are designed, that are referred to as kind of the next wave, which is all kind of publicly available on our Copilot support, but it also crucially, it's ready for testing. So I do want to invite everybody here again, if anybody wants to contact me to speak, to understand how the Team Taylor AI works in actuality, that is something that I'm very willing to kind of engage with. But I think of some of the other things that I noted, one of the really kind of key things is how is everything going to stay compliant with the EU AI Act? So I think one of the biggest challenges is the talent pooling, the top of the funnel and the talent screening. And as Sven points to in his article, this has been deemed as a high risk with the EU AI. And as we're seeing with, I think I mentioned it before, litigation with Workday and so on, it is about having that balance of feeling the FOMO and thinking, okay, I need to get this tech in place, but also facing a tribunal down the line. So making sure that all of the tech that you are engaging with is being ethical and is being responsible. And that is something that is kind of prioritized at Team Taylor. The AI is there to reduce the time spent needing to make these decisions, but it is not there to take the decisions for you on your behalf, in line with maybe a slightly more conservative approach with some of the AI out there, but in keeping with what we're seeing in the EU AI Act. But that is kind of a quick little overview. I think just in terms of exciting updates, I spoke last time when I was on this about our AI agentic recruiter. That has gone live for beta testing yesterday. So we are delivering and putting our money where our mouth is. So that's only for internal testing, but that will be launched and ready for people to test very shortly as well. So anybody that is looking at incorporating agentic AI into their recruitment processes, please do bear us in mind. Please do send me a message connecting with me on LinkedIn. Very receptive to a dialogue, feedback, and so on.
Fantastic stuff, Ed. On the agentic AI, I'm sure people are very excited about it. Can you give us, without trying to, without putting you in a position where you might be, promising too much, but can you give us an idea of what you're hoping to achieve with the agent within Team Taylor?
Absolutely. So, I mean, for the first thing, it is digesting kind of information and being able to kind of prompt it, i.e. kind of, can you pull X report for me, for example, or can you pull up a list of candidates that have this certificate? So it can automatically kind of create these talent pools for you. So, and you can do that on kind of a skills based or any other different data point that you might have within the tool. Like, can you pull a list of internal referrals from the last quarter, for example? So all of these things that might typically be a bit laborious, that is what the AI can do. This is the initial phase where it's going to be more of a kind of information summarization and gathering. It's not going to be running actions per se. We do also have like a lot of automations in place that is automation based as opposed to AI. But down the line, the idea is they will also be able to kind of run some of the low impact work that your TA teams might be doing, so that can just be automated, so you're focusing on more high value work.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't share a little bit more than that. I know that my CTO will absolutely stab me in the neck if I share too much. So just sharing what I can today, but it will be launched very, very soon.
The CTO is probably saying, "Get him off the screen, get him off." Ed, listen, wonderful to get your overview and update. I think you represented the business really well there. I've just shared the link to Ed. If you want to chat to him directly, go ahead and connect with him on LinkedIn, and he'll more than happy to spend some time with you. I've also shared the link to Team Taylor, also a link to the Team Taylor demo page. So if you're going to get straight in and book a demo, why don't you go ahead and do that? Okay, Ed, thanks a lot for your contribution. Hang around the rest of the chat. It's going to be interesting to see what Sven's got to say.
Thanks as ever, Hung. Thanks, Adam. Looking forward to it.
Good stuff. Tech is getting better. I mean, back in our day, Adam, and I do include you as a recruiter because you did do some recruiting, didn't you, back in the day? Back in our day, which is now 20 years ago, I reckon we last did proper recruitment 20 years ago. Man, it was easy access on premise. like this is before Bond Adapt. It literally was a product that no one never used. It was worse than Access. Couldn't believe it. Now you look at the technology, it's like right up there. I'd be a superstar recruiter these days. Anyway,
23 years ago, that's when I was last a recruiter.
23 years. Yeah, I think more or less. Actually, I might have been doing the job a little bit longer than you in the sense of being an agent till 2009, active recruiter till 2013. So I'm still kind of halfway into the business. But yeah, tech is amazing these days. Folks, let us know if you're interested in upgrading on core recruitment tech. Have you made your decision yet? Are you suffering from, let's hang on another 3 months because the current product is going to promise me this? Let me know in the chat where you're at with all of that. Oh, okay. Let's do the review of the newsletter real quick, Adam, because we've got Sven waiting on here. So give us 3 things from last week that was interesting for you, and we'll just batter through these.
Let's start with the article about a vice president in technology at Walmart who was claiming was gaining $30,000 a day of kickbacks from staffing agencies, and his actions resulted in 1,200 contractors from a company called Caspex, a recruitment business, who were basically fired as a result. The article suggests that there's a real rot within the tech recruiting kind of world, and it's effectively corrupt as hell. However, I did a bit of fact checking on this, and it's absolutely unsubstantiated rumor. Walmart did say they had severed a relationship with a staffing company, and there were some jobs lost as a result, but there was no evidence actually about this particular thing. That doesn't mean it's not true. It just means that there's not actually any facts in it. But it was interesting to read the suggestion that there is rot within the tech hiring culture.
It's very, very interesting because it's so obvious to me how vulnerable recruitment is to corruption. Always has been. I remember being aware of it really, really early on when one of our top billers back in my agency days. Quite right, Peter. One of my top billers in my agency days. He was top of the table. Why? He happened to be going out with his customer. It was like everyone was like, "Oh my god!" At what point is that a conflict of interest? And it was like so obvious as well. I mean, obviously this is in the early 2000s, but even then it was like dodgy. So yeah, the story here is basically if you're in charge of making a hiring decision, or if you're making a decision saying, oh yeah, we need 500 new people in this department, guess what? There's a lot of payroll cost there. It's a big contract for somebody, and you may well be available to be buttered up with some sort of kickback. I'm sure it happens more than we realize, because who's going to know? Who is going to know? Really interesting topic. But we should dive into Blind or something like that and get some gossip on some of this stuff, because I'm sure it happens more than we think. All right, give us another one, Adam.
Let's talk about Valve. It is a gaming business, I think, and their handbook for new employees, which I thought you described it as it could sit on the coffee table. I mean, it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. But the thing I took from it was not just the effort that they went into like making the new employee feel kind of special and feel like they're in a luxury environment, or a high value environment, should we call it. But actually reading through it all, I really liked the culture that it portrayed as well. So flat structure, autonomy and responsibility being really highly valued in the organization, big emphasis on collaboration, big emphasis on culture of learning, hiring being a real priority, like activity for everybody in the business, and also like growth, future, people like continuously driven by new ideas and the ability to input your new ideas and make the company better in every kind of way. Growth mindset, effectively. So I liked not just the aesthetic of the actual book itself, but the culture that it was displaying in there as well. It was really wonderful.
Yeah, really, really good document. And again, I don't want to say, hey, listen, everybody, shame everyone for having a scrappy document on new employee onboarding. But do check out the link I've just sent in the chat there. Valve, by the way, they just produced this incredible new employee handbook, which, if you had access to that on day one of your job with the company, you're going to just feel completely different, because this was beautifully illustrated and also very clear with the culture of the company. So how it actually delivered the message was so strong. Valve, by the way, per capita, have the highest revenue per employee on the planet, apart from one company. The other company that has more is Nvidia. So Valve, a very successful company, and basically are saying this is the reason why. Do take a look. Okay.
I am certain that Citadel will be up there. Their revenue per employee is tens of millions. But anyway, do you know about them? I mean, they're an insane company. But anyway,
they sound very much like some sort of private equity fund or something like that.
They're not, but they are financial services based in New York. Now,
Yeah.
leading into Sven, I think we need to talk about Bessemer Ventures State of AI report for 2025. I study this a lot. I listen to podcasts on this particular subject. So there's two major growth models in AI. One's what's called the supernovas, huge early annual recurring revenue, quite low margins, but like vast distribution. And then the shooting stars, which are aiming for slower and kind of healthier growth, should we call it. Bessemer is saying that the old SaaS benchmarks of ARR don't really apply so much in the new world, and AI has really reset the expectations on that, which ties in with what Bill Berman's been talking a lot about in terms of the value placed around a consumption-based model. But I don't think buyers in our world are particularly interested in big changes, but it'd be interesting to know what Sven says about this. Infrastructure, context, agentic systems, these all matter more than just the models and the large language models. Computation's really intense. Margin's going to be under a lot of scrutiny, not from Bessemer, but from my own research on this. I understand that year two renewals are going to be like much lower values than they have been in year one for a lot of AI systems, because of the amount of competition and the threat of moving on to try different things. And then, in summary of the clear kind of AI opportunities in that venture capital world: infrastructure, dev tools, enterprise, vertical AI, so specialists like poetry, for example, and then consumer AI, of course, as well. And that's the five main things that are the most likely to succeed in this new world. So again, thought it was it's a little bit geeky. If you're interested in investment and technology, then good thing to look at.
Yeah, it's kind of taken at it from an investment lens, which is kind of why I was interested in it, because this is what companies or what the money is thinking when it comes to backing businesses. I thought it was really interesting from an educational perspective, because it covered a very wide gamut of the impact of AI. And you can kind of start to put the pieces of the AI economic ecosystem together by reading it. So yeah, you can take a view of the predictions and say, you know what, that's all nonsense, that's all well and good, but the research itself I thought was very educational in terms of just getting a bit more of grounding with regards to how the entire ecosystem fits together. So definitely have a look at that. Loads of other good stuff, obviously. Yes, Tracy, I'm sure Adam can do that. He will do that straight away, or at least make the effort to do so. Do check out the newsletter, by the way, if you haven't already, recruitingbrainfood.com. Sign up for the free plan, and you'll get basically this good stuff every week. All right, let's bring on Sven. He's been waiting long enough, and the audience has been waiting long enough as well, because this is great to just get someone who really sharpens the analytical lens on the industry. And yeah, always good to get him on screen anyway. So let's do this, and hopefully I don't screw up. Okay. Let's see whether that happens. Yep, I think that's invitation made. Cool. Very good. Let's see how we go.
There we go.
Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Sven, we can hear and see you fine. Great to see you, sir.
I had to do the clicking. Yeah, but I'm through now. Hello from Germany. Good to see you both and everyone else. Sunny day over here, which is, in September, quite a unique thing. And obviously, following the conversation was really good to listen in already. Yeah. So what do you want to talk about first, Tom?
I want to talk firstly, obviously, Sven, let's introduce yourself for the people who don't know you and should. Can you quickly introduce yourself, who are you, what it is you do?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Sven Elbert. I'm the lead analyst for talent acquisition at Fosway Group. Fosway is Europe's #1 analyst firm, boutique analyst. We're focusing on HR topics. I'm in industry for like 20 years myself, have worked as a recruiter, did a bit of a stint in learning, but that was about the time when Adam was in that place, I guess, as well. I have worked for software companies in the meantime, and now for 5 years at Fosway in the role. And it's really like in a very exciting time, like all the innovation currently that you see in TA, and TA is at the forefront of everything in HR. Is like really exciting. So yeah, no, it's a lot of fun to be in that role. I'm feeling blessed, if that makes sense.
I was about to say, being an analyst in the kind of marketplace right now, when it's so dynamic, has got to be such an interesting moment, right? Because it's so volatile, so dynamic. It's not like a staid thing where you're staring at it. It's the same every month. No, it's changing all the time.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously the hype is huge. Everybody is like talking about the agentic approaches now, and AI is everywhere. And I think debunking that a little bit, seeing what the realities of that is for recruiters, for companies, and there is obviously shades of everything, right? People finding good success with it, others are, have not really started yet. And I think that's really what, why you kind of need to take people by the hand and, help them along the journey, because it is new for a lot of people. One of the findings of the report is also we ask for like investment, like how is your investment going to change in the year ahead? And recruiting skills is pretty high up in that. So that is a realization of obviously people having to up their game as well and familiarizing themselves with these tools. So yeah.
The talk that you did in a RecFest, tell us about this research actually, because it's now turned into a time series, hasn't it, Sven? So every year you're doing this. So for the people who are not familiar with this, right. What is this research? How is it conducted?
Yeah, it's an annual survey that runs quite a long, it's open still even. We haven't necessarily closed it yet. We will publish the final results in October. It is in collaboration with RecFest and the Recruiting Leaders 100. It goes out to their audience. It is to our audience, to anyone on LinkedIn who obviously sees the link. It's quite a long survey, so people have to have some endurance. But the findings are really quite interesting because they cover a lot of areas, and we are sharing everything with the public as well. So those will be done through infographics and things like that come out later in the year. It's 70%, 71% of the respondents from Europe, the larger proportion of the rest from the States, and then also a bit more weighted towards larger enterprise. 70% are 1,000 employees and up. And within those 70%, also a larger proportion in the larger enterprise sector. TA leaders, TA ops, all those roles are invited. And we're doing similar things for learning for wider HR topics as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Can you give us an idea of the numbers of people that would typically fill this out? Like, because it's a long survey, so sometimes obviously drop off is going to be high. Like
there's a bit of a drop off, right? We can recircle and put people's attention to certain sections within it. So I think that's good. It's in the high hundreds in terms of the participation. I think you have 1,000 in the headline. I'm not sure that is entirely true, but so it's definitely a significant proportion. When you run these surveys, actually, as you see the results come in, obviously we have access to the data. I have an anonymized way. You can basically see that the things are stabilizing after a certain point quite significantly. So I think that's whether you then have whatever 20, 50, 100 more or not, the incremental value of each individual one is then reducing.
Yeah, fantastic. I've just had a request for the link to the survey. If someone has that, I think Adam's just shared it in that link. So great. Give it a shot. If you are a head of TA leader, or anybody in talent ops or whatnot, that's still open. So you can go contribute to it. And the results will be officially announced in October. But let's dive into some of the headlines, Sven. If I can say, okay, pull out what's the insight that you've been able to derive from the responses to date. Can you give us, the top 5 things that have emerged from your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think overall, if we look at the market as a whole, and start with priorities for TA, then the situation has been better. Obviously, mostly due to the overall economic situation, TA teams are under pressure. The pressure to consolidate systems, to be more effective, to show value is significant. And yeah, I guess quality of hire is the number one priority for folks in this year. In EMEA, this is even more the case than in the US, of course, because of obviously the wider landscape of how you hire people. And certainly the number of applicants that people are getting in most of the roles is also increasing very, very significantly. So recruiters are more busier of having to find that little golden needle in the haystack. On the other hand, also the needles are getting all painted a little bit in gold because the candidates also have access to AI. And that obviously has implications on what people are prioritizing to use in order to find the real gold, if I can call it like this. And the study speaks a little bit about the nuance with that. I have a few slides prepared if that's useful. Can pull them up or just talk over and try to give you that however
if
you
you
want.
have slides, Sven, let's pull them up. Let's share screen below. There should be a share screen option there, even though we've got obviously we're very good looking people. I'm sure everyone would love to stare at us for a little bit longer. Having some visual support on some of this complexity, I think, is going to be useful. And by the way, Sven, I do love the analogy of the needle in the haystack and the gold painted needles. I think that's very, very apt in the current frame, isn't it?
I need to upload it. Hold on, I think that'll take a little while. Yeah, so I think while we're pulling that up,
you shouldn't have to upload it. Just click the present button.
Yeah, that's
you could present onto the your
present
screen.
That would do it. Oh yes, of course. Why not that?
I forgot there was actually an option on Crowdcast that uploads slides, but yeah, it's additional confusion. No need to do that.
Yes. Can you see that? Oh no, I can't see me anymore. But maybe you can see my screen.
Yeah,
coming through.
We can see it fine, Sven. So right now you're not in presentation mode, but we can see it. But if you go to presentation mode, I think it'll expand the screen.
All right, let me try again.
Oh,
has it gone now? That was not smart.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's all right.
Men and technology, it's always a problem.
No, you tried the screen share again. We were good then. It was just a matter of on the Google slides to move it.
Yeah. So is it better now? Is it coming along? Maybe now.
That's it.
Hopefully.
Is it?
Yeah, that's it. There we go. Super. I apologize. So I mean, this is one of the things that we asked, right, in terms of the priorities. So like quality is really number one. Candidate experience also totally not up for debate. Some if you ask me, some not so good kind of things around D&I in very sharp decline in terms of how much that is a priority for people, has gone down very, very significantly, was quite high up and has fallen down across Europe too. Speed has gone up again, so that was actually quite low last year in 24, and we're seeing it coming up again. So definitely good to see that some organizations are actually wanting to hire fast, not just quality, but also obviously it's a growth signal, right? So I think that's really good. And then in terms of the budgets, I think this is an interesting one where budgets are under pressure. 46% of the respondents have said that they will have less money to spend, and 23% have said they have a bit of an increase available at the fingertips. And then how that spreads out, obviously, notably branding, recruiting skills. TA Tech was quite high up in previous years, but that has fallen down a little bit now. So that is also obviously what you see in terms of the vendor market. Vendors are struggling a little bit more to find new business opportunities. If they are not an AI innovator, then obviously that's probably even more difficult nowadays. So yeah, I think those are some of the interesting statistics. Any thoughts or comments maybe from your side on that?
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, firstly, overall decline of budget, folks. Does that comport to your experience from this year compared to last? I mean, obviously, my intuition says that's probably about right. But does it let us know? Are you part of the 23% that's increased the budget in some way, and why do you think that is? And as for the spread of how it's put together, I find that fascinating. Like, I'm surprised at employer branding, I've got to say. I would have thought that would have been, I won't say damaged, but sort of, because we're in this world where we have the perception that there's lots of candidates out there. Whereas EB has always traditionally been, okay, we need to increase the numbers in the funnel. So yeah, I'd love to think a little bit more on that. I wonder what your thoughts are on that, Sven. What's your interpretation as to why the distribution is kind of,
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously also still hard to fill roles, right? And for those you obviously want a strong employer brand. Probably hence a lot of people are also investing in that image, in their employer value proposition there, and career sites getting more attention as maybe people are getting enough traffic, but then obviously you want to make sure that your career site is actually working really well. And then certainly that comes with additional needs of branding. Also, more content is probably needed on the career sites, as candidates now also have deep research tools at their fingertips and can probably ask a very complex query to a large language model and get a really good answer about what jobs are out there. But for that, you actually need quite a lot of content to be available on the career site. So I mean, those are some of the things probably I would read into that.
I mean, Sven said that like a lot of the response, it's heavily sort of enterprise kind of focused in terms of the respondents. I mean, I don't know very many enterprise employers who have increased headcount in the last year. They're doing more with less people. So I would expect to have seen a decrease in spend on recruitment. It's not at all surprising to me. There have been masses of corporate transformations, workday implementations, restructures, as the CEOs all went, oh, ChatGPT is good, let's get rid of half the workers. And then, of course, they realized that it's not quite as simple as that. So, but the impact of that was very significant, with the CEO and CFO going, AI, we can get rid of most of our people, and then hiring freezes and restructures. And then they've probably gone, actually, nah, we need people to do a lot of things. And so, they've become a little bit more educated on what really is going to work. But overall, I don't think if you take, say, FTSE 100 companies, I can't imagine their headcount is up over the last year. It'll be down as a composite.
It'll be interesting to see an aggregate view of that. Like, get the top 100 businesses, just the numbers of employees, to see what, are there any more? There's going to be a sort of a quantifiable number there. There's a bit of interesting research by a compensation business called Pave. I don't know whether it was shared in the online community just earlier today by Matt Best, and it just tracked the numbers of recruiters in position in technology businesses, and it basically said as an indicator, a trailing indicator, should I say, of the size of headcount generally within these businesses. And the 12-month change has been from 1.8% to 1.2%. So in other words, the numbers of recruiters in an organization 12 months or so ago was 1.8% of your employee base might have been in talent or in recruiting. 2025 is 1.2. So I would say a very significant drop. And this is in technology space. I'm going to share that research in Brainfood this Sunday. But yeah, I think it comports to what we know. Headcount is frozen and shrinking, and TA teams are also shrinking as well. Oh, here we go. What's happening here, Sven?
There's an interesting one in the research around, is AI already starting to impact headcount? We've asked the same question last year. It was then when they said like 10% said, yes, there's a bit of a decrease already happening within our teams. This year, however, interestingly, the image on the right-hand side suggests clearly that there's also organizations hiring more staff into their TA function because of AI. So this is today, but looking ahead a few years, then obviously, again, 25% of organizations expect a decrease in their TA headcount. And again, here we're asking the TA function itself, not necessarily the CEO or CFO, who might have obviously their view as well. But I think it's interesting that obviously also you now see a little bit of that like anti-hype, if that makes sense. But certainly, Adam, from also what we are hearing, what's going on has been a lot of reorganizations, refocus. I mean, even understanding the number of requisitions you're going to be hiring for in the next year has become quite a bit of a challenge, given some of the economic kind of ups and downs that might change from day to day or week to week, if that makes sense. And I think that's definitely something which we are seeing here as an interesting one. The hype, I think, while there is a lot of hype, and that is absolutely stunning, the thinking is that actually there is something within AI that can create value, and people are starting to see that value materialize. It's not maybe as fast as everybody would like to think it is, especially from the vendor side, who are obviously selling. But for the corporates, it needs time to obviously be adopted, to be rolled out, people may have to make their experiences, have to make it their own. And certainly we are seeing a lot of that as well from organizations that have maybe already started to adopt some of these technologies.
A quick thing that was interesting here is maybe there's a sectoral difference. On the tech side, tech has basically been down in terms of just aggregate number of jobs, it seems. And there seems to be more significant impact of AI in tech, perhaps, than there is on enterprise, given the fact enterprise, by the way, you're hiring all kinds of people. If your workforce that you're hiring for composes of people that are driving trucks, sanitation workers, doing all kinds of stuff that's literally physical in person, where you're not dealing with a knowledge worker, then presumably AI is not having the same degree of impact as it might do if you're working compared to, I don't know, a media or tech business.
Yeah, I would agree, Hung. Obviously, if we look at what is the driver of adoption, a lot of companies are looking to increase efficiency and automate more. And obviously, high volume has the potential to be like completely automated, if you like, nowadays, right? So this is kind of where some companies have basically taken the human out of the process and just do it completely electronically. I don't think that is the solution here in Europe, because on the other hand, you obviously also then increase the churn rates, the turnover rates of the staff that you're bringing in, because they haven't been maybe properly introduced and talked to and what have you. So, but it's certainly something where most of organizations looking for efficiency increases, cost reductions, and scalability when they look towards AI. When we work with companies and they, like, how should we build the business case? I would always recommend not just to build it around those more operational figures or things, but more also look at strategic outcomes like quality of hire, competitive advantages that you want to get from it. I think that is definitely something that you should also build into the business case, to just have a balance and look at multiple things. And it also obviously makes it easier. It's not just like looking at how can we be more efficient. It's also like what can we do to do the right things, like intake meetings, for example. When I presented this at Breakfast, I kind of asked like, who of you is running intake meetings? And like half the room, or a bit more probably, when the hands went up. And this is actually an area where these AI tools are able to make a fundamental difference already, because they really reshape how you do these meetings, how you run the meetings, what outputs they generate, and then how fast you can actually start to hire and go to interview, which otherwise would have maybe not been possible because you had to like write things down manually, send some emails back and forth, and then a week is already gone or maybe more. So I think those are things that really make a difference also on the speed, time to hire kind of metric, if that makes sense.
Quick observation, just complete anecdata from me. Not only does AI note taking kind of change the game in terms of how we do that process, I've actually noticed it changes how I speak. So I'm kind of asking questions in order for it to be transcribed in such a way that it's more useful transcription afterwards. So it's changed the structuring of some of my questions. Now, I don't do intake meetings for jobs, obviously, although I might come out of retirement just as a bit of an experiment. However, when I'm doing other meetings, I'm thinking also, you know what, I've got to ask this question because I want that in the transcription. So I wonder whether, the impact of it is not only explicit in terms of the efficiency, but I think it'll have impact with regards to how we actually conduct those interviews. Theoretically, those interviews quality should improve, I guess, more structure.
Yeah, so in terms of what people are going to do more, if we look at attracting and engaging candidates, then here on this slide, corporate career side, internal mobility, relationship management is what people will be using more. So more the organic, just leverage the traffic that's coming at you rather than spending extra on agencies or classic job ads. To your point, obviously skill assessment, structured interview guidelines can be built now as part of the intake meeting, or even before, so that you have consistency for managers and everything like this. And they are really useful and writing a job description where you can actually have an AI run a pre-screening call with a potential candidate is actually already quite a challenging task, right? Because you actually need to be quite correct in terms of what you're looking for, right? Our job descriptions have a lot of fluffy, wuffy kind of, and sometimes contradictory requirements that you want to get out of it. I think from that perspective, AI is also in a way kind of possibly suited to improve the quality of what we are doing as an industry as a whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the technology will actually improve how things operate. More structured interviews, more leaning on sort of the skill set. These are significant moments. Sven, I was very interested in this. We don't need to bring the slide back up, but what we're going to do more or less of. It looks like the agency side has been hammered somewhat. That's no surprise, really, given the fact that the audience we're talking to, it's the most popular way and probably the most significant way in which you could do the more with less type of story internally. If you're spending X amount of your budget on recruitment costs, third-party agencies, of course that's going to be primary target. That's going to be tough to hear for our agency members here, but it is the reality. The technology is directly impacting sort of the calculus with regards to whether going to agency is even viable or not. So, yeah, very, very interesting. Any surprises for you on this, Sven? I mean, it's the second time you've done it, or this is actually a time series. Were there any insights that have emerged from the data that actually caught you by surprise? I thought, I thought it'd go the other way.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, we are as an analyst, you get briefed by a lot of the vendors on the AI capabilities, and you're thinking, oh, this is so cool, so great, kind of thing. But then obviously seeing how far it is in reality, I think is really interesting. So 73% of the survey respondents have not used a co-pilot yet, for example, in TA, right? So this is obviously quite an interesting statistics where, a lot of the vendors actually have invested in those kind of capabilities, providing co-pilots. And the organizations that have actually adopted them are finding really significant efficiency increases with them, or they handle, maybe some admin tasks and allow the TA team to focus on some more strategic stuff. So I think that's definitely what I would have expected to be already a little bit further ahead. We've also looked at obviously agent capabilities. Maybe I can bring that up again if that's useful. Let's see. Show that again. Sorry, it was good to see your faces again for a minute there. Not just the screen. So I don't know if you can see the slide here.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, so this is basically looking at those agentic AI scenarios, and you can see that mostly the things are still what people are, kind of considering. A few have started to implement. Real deployments really sit below 10%. There's even a few who have already decided actively against using some of the things, like end-to-end process orchestration stands out a bit, or it's still like 5%, so it's not a majority or anything. But definitely people are looking at these things very actively. And where it is live, I think it tackles currently mostly scheduling kind of tasks, more vanilla admin kind of tasks. So nothing like, it is important, but it's not like super mission critical driving decisions or anything in terms of who gets selected. And I think the earlier comment around the EU AI is also quite interesting. Maybe that's another one to share from our other study, because a lot of the tools have these, obviously compare candidates to the jobs and create a match score. And certainly in terms of the bias and fairness audits that vendors need to do in the US in terms of the state of New York, that is not necessarily trickled down to the European vendors. In fact, the US vendors are actually a little bit ahead of that in terms of, yes, we have external audits done and in place and can share that with our customers. And technically, the EU AI Act doesn't necessarily demand those rigorously, but as a buyer, you would be kind of, you would want your vendor to be compliant and have some external bias and fairness audits being conducted on the technology, right? So while it's not strictly maybe a requirement under the EU AI Act, I think the reality will show that people, particularly global organizations, will ask for it anyway, and that will certainly force the vendors to have those in place by next year. So I think that's an interesting one. Yeah.
On that note, obviously on the vendor side, it's going to be a complete. It's going to be mandatory for the vendors to be able to talk about independent verification, real-time verification, that type of stuff. It's going to increase your ability to be a player here. We know that one of the things that has happened is that there's been an explosion of tools out there. You just need to do a quick search, you'll find loads. And in fact, I think a lot of them probably can never be used in the enterprise context, at least not used in an open way and an endorsed way by the business. We do know there's a lot of shadow use of AI, where individuals are using AI, probably still ChatGPT and sticking stuff in there. But generally speaking, it's a no-no, because you're handling, you're exposing your business to basically liabilities that that is not covered with that use, basically. What are we looking at here, Sven? This looks interesting.
That's our roadmap assessment of the vendors. So we have looked at, obviously, the survey looks at what are the corporates doing. We're obviously doing a lot of interviews as well with a lot of TA leaders, so a bit more qualitatively. But we have also asked the vendors, hey guys, where are you in the process of bringing out AI to market. And this is like the overall high-level market picture. And you can basically see how it's distributed across the different steps in the funnel. So there's a bit more focus on AI in attraction and acquisition, less so in candidate management. And when we look at what is actually live, the data here is from Q1, late Q1 this year. We asked, like, where are you in delivering this? Then certainly a lot of companies or a lot of vendors have still things in pipeline or even not yet planned. 27% have said we have certain things already live with customers. And by now, obviously we are in September, that number might have gone up to 37%. So that is the highest percentage of what is live across all segments of HR by a significant amount compared to learning, compared to payroll, these kind of things. So I think TA is leading the bunch, but there's still a lot of things that are not in play yet and are being developed. And what we've basically then done, I mean, maybe that one is interesting here. This little chart on the right-hand side, we've basically segmented the features and looked at where do the vendors have consensus. So what are the things that you can probably expect to come to your TA solution across the next kind of couple of months? And I think that is the study here that Edward also mentioned earlier. And it's interesting what the mainstream features are really only 4, where more than 50% of the vendors have said, yes, this is live with our customers. And then you can obviously see the number of features in all of the other kind of categories. There's 27 in Next Wave. There's 10 in Edge Advantage. So those features that would provide vendors with a bit of an edge advantage against some of their competition, because they have something live that others are still planning out on the roadmap to be delivered later on. And the report has a bit of a list of those features. So agentic AI, for example, this is one where we are looking at the Next Wave features. So the things that are coming, like, think of it like as within the next 12 to 18 months on your renewal cycle, you can actually probably ask your vendor, guys, do you have this and this and this and this kind of functionality within your solution? And it's probably a good idea now to think about these Next Wave features. How can you adopt them? Do you want to adopt them for your business? Is that something that your vendor actually is getting live within that time period? And then start like experimenting, putting it in a test environment, trying it out in a pilot with a very friendly maybe scenario or whatever. And there are some agentic cases here, but the agents, if you like, are still really in this edge advantage category. So all of these, because I think, Hong, you had in the show notes, where are we? Are agents already in the workforce? The answer is not with many vendors you can get that. And as we've seen before, also not a lot of the corporates, less than 10%, have started to adopt it. And when they have adopted it, it is really only in quite niche use cases. But certainly a lot of interest, a lot of investment going in it. So definitely something to be aware of, to start getting the headspace of your teams around and everything like this.
That's cool. Go ahead, Adam.
Sven, it's probably not really, it's a little slightly tangential to the insight and analysis that you've got here, but since you're here, I think it needs to be asked about, and that's the M&A that's going on in recruiting technology. There's been, of course, some pretty big deals happening, and there hadn't been for a couple of years. Is your estimation that your 9 grid's going to continue to change as a result of this? Is there going to be more happening? And actually, how important do you think Smart Recruiters coming up top right in your 9 grid was it to them getting acquired by SAP?
I have no idea, to be honest. We're not involved in any of that. So, I mean, first of all, so to answer your question, our 9 grids obviously look at the market from an EMEA bias perspective. And actually, between 2025 and 2024, there has actually been relatively little change, to be honest, if you compare the two, which kind of struck me as like, why is that? And actually now with these, and there have been multiple acquisitions, even beyond the ones that you have heard of, probably. There have been others in other segments of the market, which definitely will shake up the market. We have already, and you see it on this chart. This is not the 9 grid. This is another, it has also 9 boxes, if you like. But this shows what the vendors have live in terms of AI. And there's like, in this chart, you can see 4 vendors. We don't disclose the names because it's self-reported data, but there are 4 that are actually both in terms of their roadmap ambition, which is the thing on the x-axis, higher up, but also in terms of the features that they have live, they are higher up. And then there's others who spread around, and some have a slightly more ambitious roadmap, others are maybe a bit more cautious. Obviously, some different approaches on overselling and whatnot. But I think it's definitely something where there have been very profound and fundamental shifts going on that AI is able to deliver. And we're going to be seeing more of that in future iterations of the grid, I'm pretty sure. So there will be more disruption, I think. There's also more vendors who are, accelerating their trajectory, growing their business, and some others who have been a bit slower to adopt, who are maybe struggling a bit more than others, if that makes sense.
What's interesting here is what's interesting for me was the vendor consensus on the feature set, because that was a very interesting series of charts. There's going to be a convergence with regards to what vendors expect to deliver to customers, and then what the customers then expect from the vendors, isn't it? Like a lot of this stuff, it looks like they're going to be table stakes in 12, 18 months time. If you don't have some of this in your system, you'll be conspicuously lagging if you don't, and that's going to be a very big signal to the buying audience.
Yeah, I mean, so we've asked, is it live? We haven't necessarily asked how far is it rolled out, how widely is it adopted. That is obviously part of another process. And obviously also the sophistication. I mean, there's 4 mainstream features, and one of them, unsurprisingly, is generating job descriptions and job ads. We haven't, in the feature catalog, we haven't necessarily separated those out, although those are widely different things. And while a lot of vendors have ticked the box, if you like, there's also obviously a big difference between the 2 things, and not every tool is doing it at a level of sophistication that does the job ad side of the thing justice, right? So, and this goes through all of these kind of features. There is a sophistication element that you need to assess, not just whether it's live. So hence, obviously, we haven't put names up here, but obviously there's an analyst viewpoint, I guess, on some of what is going on. There's case studies that are out there, and we are seeing that buyers are willing to pay a premium just to buy into the reality of AI that has already been delivered, and the promise of more agentic capabilities coming out in the near future and being adopted and being available. It does put some strain on the organization in terms of training and upskilling. So that is something that the vendors also need to get right. Because, I mean, otherwise you're just paying a lot of money for a tool that is not really adopted in the best possible way. And I think that is also what the vendors need to kind of look into. How do we make that work for the customers? How do we upskill them? How do we make sure that it's actually adopted? How do we prove that it creates the value? Because to your earlier point, there's also some early signals that some of the pricing models are changing more to a consumption based kind of setup, although that is still very, very early days. We are seeing it more on some of the earlier parts of the funnel where that is already a reality. But other vendors are moving in that direction for sure.
I just want to make a comment about this, and Sven, I'd want to know if you agree with me or disagree with me. But these companies that are top right on here, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the big winners in this, because the businesses that could be top left, bottom left today, who maybe have like very big customer bases and are considered kind of semi-legacy technology, they're maybe moving at the same pace that their customers want to move at. And there's a lot of businesses who are absolutely not ready to be wholesale adopting AI into almost any part of their recruiting process.
Absolutely. No, that's spot on, Adam. So obviously, you know, the stories you see, particularly on larger enterprises, as they are able to extract value from these tools, there are some significant stories. And we saw the same like with internal mobility marketplaces and skills after COVID, right? There were some very significant stories out there that were like super cool, and everybody was like, oh, we need an internal mobility marketplaces. But then a lot of organizations realized, oh, you know, culture is not ready, we're not able to deliver that in time or whatever. And a lot of projects fail. So it doesn't necessarily mean that a vendor who's a bit slower is actually going to lose out, right? That's absolutely not the case. Some are very thoughtfully investing, but I think it's a good moment in time today to actually look at some of the details, because I mean, our catalog is like almost 100 items long, and see where your vendors sit on that, and then have a bit of a conscious discussion with them, but also internally, where is it that your organization wants to take this, right? So obviously small organizations are very different than very large organizations. If you have a lot of high volume versus a lot of desk-based versus knowledge workers. So there's obviously each situation is widely different. And I think that needs to be considered. So that is not to say that any vendor in here, they're all really good vendors, don't get me wrong. And I didn't want to belittle anyone, by no means at all.
Yeah, you can feel there's the pressure on overselling as well. And it's a difficult one, because we as consumers bear some responsibility for this. But we're pressuring vendors to obviously deliver these solutions. They're going to say, yes, we're going to deliver that. And yeah, we're almost like contributing. We're a contributor to the hype that we suffer from. So we need to be a bit more magnanimous, I think, in terms of how we deal with all of this. Sven, what a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for all of this. This deck is not available until October, I understand. Is that correct? Can you give us some ideas to when people can get access to this?
The research of the features that I just showed is available on the website for download. The infographics will come out in about a month's time from now, so it should be on the website. If you follow us on LinkedIn, you'll get them on LinkedIn in carousel form, and then you can download the whole kind of thing. Again, it's possible with our friends from Breakfast, so obviously big shout out to them as well, if that makes sense. And we'll be presenting those results to the RL100 in an event in Whitstable as well. So looking forward to that. And yeah, if anyone still wants to do the survey, it's always appreciated. I know taking surveys these days is not what people like to do, and particularly if they're as long as this one, but it actually drives quite a lot of insight. And we're playing it all back, so there's nothing like hidden stuff or anything with it.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Okay, that's about it. We've got to leave it there because there's too much to talk about as it is. But what a great injection of intelligence into the discourse by you, Sven. Thank you so much. Let me let you go. Thanks for joining. Hopefully we'll catch up soon, my friend.
Thanks, Hong. Thanks, Adam. Good to see you. Take care. Have a good day.
Okay, that's it. We've got to end it there, folks, because it is 3:05, and I've got to get out of here. Actually, I've got a Cantonese comedy night to attend to, later on today. Would you believe what's going to happen? I predict it right now. I'm going to be picked out by the comedian unwillingly and picked on in a language that I'm actually not very good at. So it's going to be absolutely desperate stuff. But anyway, I've committed to this, so I'm going to be there. And I want to see James Hutt as well for coffee. So James, I know you're watching this. Get ready, mate. I'm on my way. I'll see you in an hour or two. That's about it. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next week, of course. If you've enjoyed that chat, make sure you follow the channel, Crowdcast. Every Friday, we pump this out. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, follow me on my personal page, because I live stream on LinkedIn this same show. So if you don't want to sign up to Crowdcast and all that type of palaver, just follow my page there and you can watch it on LinkedIn. That's about it. We'll be back next week. We'll catch you then. Thanks for watching.